Hello everyone and welcome back to Threes to Wound. My name is Reese and today we're going to take a look at those Grey Knights of Mystery, the Grey Knights. We're going to take a look at the Grey Knights in Kill Team and how they're currently performing. We'll also quickly touch on a few things that have happened while I was on a little holiday. So very briefly, you may or may not care, but I just got back from a holiday. Aruba, Jamaica, ooh, I wanna take it. The reason that's important is a few things happened while I was away. LVO happened and there was also some reveals. I just want to touch very quickly because I know Grey Knights fans amongst you will just want to know about the Grey Knights. So I definitely understand and we'll jump into them very quickly. Two things I just want to touch on. First off was seeing some of the results. I watched Glass Half Dead's video just the other day, and I just wanted to touch on, after seeing how the top 8 or top 9 sort of turned out there'll be a little graphic somewhere. The one thing I want to say that I found really, really interesting was I love seeing the even spread of where all those different factions have come from. We've got Compendium teams, we've got the White Dwarf Ill expansion teams, we've got the box set teams there as well. We've got teams from everywhere and there's clearly no one team really dominating. I think the most out of those results there is 2 of each team. So I think it's the Veteran Guardsman and the Warp Coven both being represented twice there. Very surprising to see the Tau with just the one representation. I know a lot of people are still very up in the air about how they feel about the Tau. Are they overpowered? The general consensus is yes, but we're seeing in a lot of tournaments they're not really being taken, and I find that really, really interesting. Are people not wanting to feel like they're taking an OP team? But then Custodes are missing from there. We're seeing the Harlequins are well represented. They're sort of the 2 Compendium teams in Custodes and Harlequins who are known for being strong, but obviously lower model counts. I don't know. It's very interesting to see a team that is clearly known for being ahead of the pack in terms of what it's being offered, then not being taken to competitive tournaments. So I'm not sure if that's a slightly different mindset in the Kill Team community, that people don't necessarily want to have the team that is a auto win or a plug and played to win, or if they're enjoying the more cerebral chess-like strategy options you get with teams like Guard, Harlequins, things like that. I'm not sure. I'd love to know your thoughts on why we think we're not seeing as much of the Tau. If they are as good as they, people say they are, and if people are going to these competitive tournaments, they're there to win. That's why they're there. Is there some kind of unspoken bond or vibe that people are sort of embracing and saying, well, we're not going to take them? Or is it a little bit of overhype with how powerful they are? Sometimes too, you can see some teams are super powerful, to a mid-tier player or someone who's good, but then once you get to that top tier, it's the top of the top of players of those games who really understand the mechanics and how it all works, maybe all of a sudden they know how to exploit them. So yeah, really interesting to see that after all the things I've watched and read, and I haven't had much of a chance to play the Tau myself. I've literally just got them built finally. So I will get them on the table very soon to experience it for myself. Curious. The other big thing was the reveal, or the small reveal. It wasn't a huge thing. I know a lot of people were really, really disappointed. They were hoping for something a lot bigger. I must say though, I'm alright with this. The Corsair model looks really, really great. I think we've been very spoiled with the speed in which Kill Team sort of gained momentum with its release schedule. It's been very, very interrupted with things like COVID. I know they've had delivery and shipping issues and all that stuff at Games Workshop. I can understand that. I'm pretty lenient with that stuff. So I get that they're not wanting to maybe reveal too much in case timelines get squeezed again, things aren't ready in time. I'm not sure what's worse, disappointing people with a reveal or disappointing people with stuff not arriving when it should. So maybe they erred on the side of caution there. The Corsairs look great. I'm really, really excited to see these guys on the table. I love them in the lore. I think this is going to add a whole new raft of flavor, not just to Kill Team, but to 40k itself as well. So I think having them in the game officially and being able to make an impact is really, really cool. The thing that's got me really excited and maybe a little bit lame, I'm excited about the terrain I really want to know what the terrain's going to be. Is it going to be Elder inspired, Elder themed? Are we going to be on, is it going to be broken craft world terrain? Is it going to be ancient Eldari statues? Is there going to be some cool alien world? Or will it just be a repurposed existing kit? It may be. That would be sad. I really hope they take this opportunity to take Kill Team to the first sort of kill zone that is truly, truly alien and not Imperial in its build and its like. Don't get me wrong, the Orcs is very Xenos, don't get me wrong, but it's still built out of lots of Imperium scrap metal, and we've seen really cool bits of terrain like that in the past. I really love that, and I love how thematic that is, so I hope they continue to use Kill Team as an opportunity to bring really cool and unique terrain. I think that opportunity for modeling, customization, is just as important for helping to build the universe of the game as the models themselves. Speaking of the other models as well, we know that there's rumors abound in terms of what the other team in the box set will be. Most people leaning towards Chaos Cultists, Chaos Space Marines, some form of Chaos Force, which I think is really cool. I've been running a lot of Chaos Space Marines and trying to make Chaos Cultists great in a Chaos Kill Team. It hasn't gone well so far. If you didn't know, I'll probably do a video about it very soon, but the Chaos Cultists aren't really well supported. They've got lots of numbers, but they've really got only one strategic ploy they can use, and that's it. So they are really just mad little pleb chaos worshippers, which I guess does make sense, that there's definitely an opportunity or a missed opportunity there to add a bit more thematic flavor to them, to really make them feel like the underlings or the minions of these big, powerful Chaos Space Marines. The dynamics there, 2 or 3 Space Marines in your kill team, whole bunch of cultists, but I'd love to see some form of order interaction between them, or them having to sacrifice themselves for powers, or there's definitely some flavor or something that's being missed there. So I'm hoping in this box that if it is Chaos that we either get something really special with them being a very specialized Chaos kill team, a bit like the Chosen in the Eldritch Omens box set. They are really cool models. Is that maybe a hint? Possibly looking at rules being written for them to go in conjunction with cultists in the box? I don't know. Or is it some new cultist models? I know a lot of people have been crying out for new Chaos Cultist models. The old ones are very, very hard to get your hands on. There's still the Blackstone Fortress ones, which I love those sculpts. They're really, really cool. But a lot of people are wanting, I guess, multi-part kits, things they can have a lot more customization on. So stay tuned for that one. I'm really excited about it. I'm looking forward to it. I think that tease for me gave me enough hints and enough to be excited about that I think that's going to be a really, really cool release when it arrives. Well, enough jibber jabber about things like that, things you might not have cared about. We're here to talk about Grey Knights, so let's jump straight in. In my opinion, the Grey Knights are one of the best starter factions in terms of accessibility, ease of purchase, to be able to build them and understand them and get them on the tabletop ready to play, because they're great and easy to paint, especially for a beginner out there. They've also got some great mix of survivability. They're good in close combat, they're good at shooting, and they've got psychic powers. So straight away, I think someone jumping into the game can put them on the table and really have some success compared to some of the other starting teams, especially those teams who have a lot more models. There's a really big benefit to having less models, I think, when you start this game. It really helps you get your head around less rules better than trying to work out all these big synergies that can happen with veteran guardsmen, commandos, things like that. Those teams that have 10 to 14 models, even as someone who's played quite a bit now, on an off day, that can be a lot, and you can make a lot of mistakes really easily. So Grey Knights are a great start team. Cheap to get started, easy to paint, easy to play, easy-ish to play. The mental load's not too bad at all, and they're fun. They look badass. Taking a look at the fire team you can take, it's actually pretty simple. You can take your Justicar, who is your leader model. Then it's another 4 Grey Knights. 3 of those will be just your regular Grey Knight warriors. 1 will be a gunner. So you can only take the 1 gunner option. The rest of the guys, the only real difference there is then again how you're going to really equip them with their close combat weapons. I always love doing this. It does annoy some people because they're not sure if it's the baseline, but I always like to compare them to a guardsman and to an intercessor space marine as well, as sort of our base line of where we're at and what units we're looking at. So you'll see those on screen now. We'll start with the intercessor, and it's pretty much a dead heat. The only difference you'll see there is in the wounds. The intercessor having 2 more wounds due to being a Primaris versus your Grey Knights at the moment are still firstborn. So therefore, that's the main difference between them. Apart from that, yeah, you've still got your 3 APL, which is fantastic. Makes them very versatile in the battlefield, makes them maneuverable, gives them a lot of combat output, makes them be able to handle objectives. There's really nothing these guys can't handle in most turns. And still having 5 of them with 3 APL, you know, you're not going to be too heavily overwhelmed because they can shoot and they can fight in close combat. So there's not too many areas that these guys don't excel. Having their 3 APL is also great for psychic powers. We'll talk about psychic powers a little bit later on as well. But yeah, another handy thing for APL. Sometimes in some games you may find you waste turns where you won't use that 3rd APL once you move into position, or you shoot and there's no more viable targets, no one to charge, things like that. You pretty much will find you'll always then end up spending it on a bit of a psychic power. When you put them up against the humble guardsmen, it continues to look very rosy for them. They've got the extra APL. Obviously, they don't have the group activation. No big deal there. There's only 5 of them. They've got the power armor save at 3+ compared to the 5+, and obviously significantly more wounds than their guardsman counterpart. Definitely puts them in that more mid-tier to high tier in terms of your infantry that you're going to be seeing in kill team. Your guardsmen definitely being the lowly sort of basement dwellers, if you will. And to give those Grey Knights the feeling they really are superhumans. The basic gun profile for these guys is the Storm Bolter. This is a great weapon to have. 4 attacks, hitting on 3s, 3/4 damage, and the big one, and this is what makes them truly punishing, is relentless. So every one of your guys is hitting super consistently. You're already hitting on 3s, but then gaining relentless to re-roll those as well. You don't miss too much, and 3/4 is a consistent sort of damage. When you're looking at Tau, Guard, Eldari, teams that don't have a whole bunch of wounds averaging out around about 7 wounds, well, yeah, they're going to do some work on that. The other thing that makes these guys really handy with their Storm Bolters is you're going to have at least 4 units out of your 5 with Storm Bolters, and you still have access to Bolter Discipline. We'll have a little bit more of a look at that in the strategic ploys. That's really doubling your output that you're already putting out on very consistent weapons. So if your opponent is silly enough to be not great with their placement, if the battlefield is a little bit sparse on terrain, you're going to be doing a lot of work. So I guess that threat or area denial of the Storm Bolters and their consistency is going to be one of your strongest weapons. You can definitely outshoot a lot of teams with consistent high rate of fire. Yes, you're not going to have the huge AP weapons, but you're going to be able to put down a withering hail of fire, and that's what you might find you lean into a bit here. The Nemesis Demon Hammer is the first of the close combat weapons. 5 attacks, hitting on 4s, 5/6 damage, and it's got stun on criticals. This is a really powerful option, but I'm not sure if it's one of the best to take. I'm still not sure where I land with stun and its efficiency or its effectiveness. This is probably a weapon that's going to be most suited against high armored or high wound count enemies, because doing 5/6 damage, 5 even on just a regular hit, is really handy. Against a guardsman or a guardian or something like that, you're squishing them in 2 hits easily. But against those tougher opponents, this can be a great way to bring them down because your shooting doesn't really have the AP. So leaning into the close combat side of things could be a way to bring them down. Next up, it's the Felchians. I think they get points just because they look cool and they sound cool. You're gaining the Relentless rule here again. 5 attacks, hitting on 3s, and 4/5 in the damage. But Relentless is really their main benefit. It's kind of, I guess, the Storm Bolter equivalent of close combat. You're hitting very consistent. You're probably not going to miss a lot in close combat because you're already hitting on 3s. The other benefit you've got here as well is you can use it in conjunction with psychic powers to make it that your criticals do a little bit more damage. When you're using these in close combat, if you use it in conjunction with Hammerhand, you can definitely help to boost that damage output a little bit more on that first strike. So suddenly that first hit becomes a bit more powerful. Again, really edging out those lower powered models to be pretty much dead after the first attack, but also having that high amount of hits means more parries available to you as well. So being able to parry out an opponent to limit the damage that they can do is also a really viable option, because you're going to have thrown a lot of attack dice out there and you should have hit very consistently. Next up, it's the force weapons. These are great because of one fantastic rule: lethal 5+. The only other difference here is that the critical does 1 more damage. So when you're hitting lethal 5+ and you're doing an extra damage on the critical, that adds up. Again, possibly looking at putting hammer hand. Now all of a sudden that first hit you can deal at can be 7 damage, which for a lot of units is instant death before they even get a chance to fight back. So you are losing relentless compared to the Falchions. Obviously no stun compared to the hammer. I think these are probably a sweet spot. I always really lean towards these and the Falchions. They're my 2 favorites that I've seen played a lot, and I really like it. Again, just for consistency of damage and the options, hitting on 4s that you see with the hammer, it does hurt you a little bit because all of a sudden it's just those less little hits. You don't have the relentless here, so no re-rolls, but you're still hitting on 3s, so your chance of hitting pretty well, and the damage of those criticals is pretty strong. The Nemesis warding stave is the same in terms of its stats as the Falchions. It just doesn't have relentless. It gains stun again. So this is another place where I'm a bit like, stun, no relentless. I don't know why you'd take this one. Again, has anyone had much success with stun? I say this in a lot of my videos and no one said yes yet. There's been a few moments where it's been interesting, but I definitely haven't found it that effective. So I wouldn't say I'd be looking at this over either the force weapons or the Falchions, with the force weapons probably being just slightly ahead. As mentioned a bit earlier, these guys also have the Manifest Psychic Power. That's their unique action, and it costs 1 AP. We'll break that down a little bit later. Next up, it's the Grey Knight Gunner. Now, stats-wise, these guys are exactly the same. The main difference here being the heavy weapons they can take. The first one we've got here is the Incinerator. Now, this is basically like the jacked up cigarette lighter that kids used to do where they'd pump them up so the flame was really big. It looks cool. I'm not sure if this is a great choice. Main issue I've got with this one is one key word on it, and that is heavy. I think the durability or the strength of a lot of the flamers in other teams is it allows you to get consistent hitting damage weapon up the field quickly, and you can use it for a bit of area denial. This is obviously better than a flamer in terms of its damage output. Having an extra attack as well as 1 extra damage on your criticals, it is more powerful. I'm not sure if that upgrade on its output is worth heavy, because all of a sudden it's really immobile. So you are really having to use it in area denial, but at the cost of leaving this guy stationary for a long time to get much effectiveness out of it. If you're gonna have a heavy weapon, I feel like it has to be something that's gonna have long range, and the Pentagon range of this weapon really works against it. The Silencer, or P-Silencer, is it P silent? I don't know. 6 attacks, 3+, 3/4. So it's basically your Stormbolter without relentless and heavy. Another one I'm a little bit head scratchy about. I don't think this is a great choice. Getting 2 extra shots, but you're still doing 3/4. It does have Fusillade, but again, I think that's a pretty limited option in terms of what you want on your heavy weapons. I don't think that's something that really makes it damaging. So I find this option a little bit underwhelming, which takes me to the last one. Last up, it's the Psy Cannon, and to be honest, I think out of all the gunner options, this is the one you're going to take because it really fits the archetype of what you want your heavy weapon to do. Yes, it's got the heavy keyword, but it is designed to be set up somewhere, cover an area over the whole distance of the board, and deal out some heavy damage. 5 attacks, hitting on 3s, 4, 6 on your damage as well. So 6 damage on the criticals. Even the regular hit is better now, or as good as your Storm Bolters. So you're not all of a sudden having a gun that isn't just giving you a few more shots. Obviously, the only drawback I'd probably say here is it probably doesn't feel special. There's no real cool extra ability. It just does what it says on the tin. It's a big, heavy cannon, does some damage. So it's a little bit lackluster in the worlds or realms of imagination, but it does the job, and I think this is the one you'd find your take. Lastly, it's the fists or the fisticuffs. That's what these guys have for close combat. They're going to be fine. They're a Marine. Marines are always going to be just fine in close combat. It's obviously not ideal and against close combat specialist units As always, you want to keep your heavy weapons away from them anyway, but in a pinch, they're not too bad. They also still have the same ability as well to manifest their psychic powers for the AP, so there's definitely ones that they can use to help them as well. For their psychic powers, they'd probably want to look at manifesting. You're definitely probably looking at astral aim here to give their heavy weapons the no cover special rule. So that's another great way to make them feel a bit more damaging, and a way you can add in your own thematic power behind the Grey Knight's heavy weapons. Lastly, it's the Justicar. Now, unfortunately, I don't have too much to dive into with this guy. He's just your typical leader operative. So he's going to have one extra wound, so take a little bit more to kill him. And also, he's always going to hit one better. So on most of the weapons here, he's hitting on a 2+, except for the Demon Hammer, that's moving back down to a 3+. So it makes that an interesting option all of a sudden, because it is a little bit more consistent and it's doing a large amount of damage. So having that on your leader all of a sudden, I don't mind as much, just for that more consistent heavy damage output. I still think the swords are better, but I could definitely understand why you might want to take the hammer there. I wouldn't mind it of seeing something on the Justicar to make him feel a little bit more special. Is there a way that he could manifest powers for free? Something just to give him a little bit more of a feeling of power. We may see that down the line when more stuff comes out from the Grey Knights, when they get their own customized team or something a little bit more bespoke. Apparently when I meant to say bespoke, what do you guys call them? I don't know. I still like bespoke. It's just the word I know. Speaking of powers, I'm not sure if I said powers before, but that's what we're going to talk about here. We're going to quickly touch on the psychic powers, because that is what adds a lot of the unique flavor to this team. First up is Armored Resilience. This lets you add +1 to your armor save, so effectively turning all your armor saves into 2+. This is one I find you probably use a lot of the time, especially the first turn, or when you're holding objectives. There's a lot of reasons that having a 2+ save that you're not going to want to go away from. It's a great way just to increase the already pretty good survivability of these guys, but you do still have to be aware of things like AP. It doesn't make them invulnerable. I'm sure a few Grey Knight players have made the mistake of going 2+ save and then met a melter gun. So it can still be taken away just as easily, but it's a great one, especially against teams that have lots of small arms, fire, things like that. It can make you feel bulletproof, and it can be the difference between holding an objective or achieving attack on. Hammerhand is good fun. In close combat, the first attack that you land, you get 1 extra damage. So this is really good for finishing someone off. So this is a great place or great time to think about it, is before you charge into close combat, activating this to either one-shot an opponent or at least even two-shot a stronger opponent. So yeah, this is handy. Although it sounds a bit underwhelming, only 1 damage, it can be the difference between you taking a lot more damage by finishing that fight quicker, or allowing you to maybe use your superior hitting ability to parry them out, hit them heavily with 1, and then only having to take a small amount of damage back. So very, very handy in the right situation. You just got to find that right situation and know when to use it. Astral Aim is great, especially for knocking people off objectives or for your heavy weapons. This is basically just going to give the no cover rule to those ranged weapons. I like this one. It is a little bit situational, but it can be really, really clutch at the right time when you need to shift someone ASAP. I came upon a very interesting thing with the psychic powers for the Grey Knights. There's no real rule in anywhere that I can read, and I'd love you guys to give me some book notes down below if you have found it, but that there's no stipulation they can't use their psychic powers once already engaged in close combat. The situation we had was a Grey Knight had charged my operative. They'd been locked in combat for her turn. Surprisingly, they'd both survived both activations. It went to the next turn, and then the Grey Knight wanted to use his psychic power to activate Hammerhand. If he was able to do that, he would have killed my operative in that next attack. But this is definitely one of those situations where it's rules as written, rules as intended, or rules as not written. There was no real specification on how to deal with it, that if that was actually a legal move, that it's a new turning point, he's engaged in combat. The only example we had was that the Warp Coven sorcerers, it's clearly written that they can't use their psychic powers while within engagement range. So we lent on that as, I guess, something that they'd sort of fixed up. I'm not sure if it was in the FAQ. I haven't seen it. But yeah, if you've got any solutions to that particular one, chuck it down below. The archetypes for the Grey Knights: Seek and Destroy and Security. Both two that really suit this team. And again, we're talking about if this is a team you're wanting to use as a beginner, Seek and Destroy is a great one to take. You're definitely going to be doing your best to kill the opponent's operatives, and there's a whole raft of options in that I think really suit the Grey Knights. Security can be really powerful as well, especially if it matches up with what your main mission objective is. You've got a small number of models, so holding ground and locking down areas is another strength of yours. You're not really going to be pushed up the board too spread out, or at least you don't really want to be. Your strength is to keep your core team together and maximize their covering fire lines, making sure that when they charge into combat, they've got support. Using their psychic powers to create a bit of a fortress is a really strong idea. Let's have a quick look at the strategic ploys. Some of these are very familiar, especially if you are a Marines player already. You're looking at Bolter Discipline is the first one, basically allowing you to perform 2 shoot actions. You've got lots of bolters, you hit very well. You're probably going to find you use this a bit, especially in those sort of mid-turns, turns 2 and 3, where you've still got that ability to move and then shoot twice. So you can really move this operative into some dangerous positions. If you've also picked your positioning well, you could also look at Astral Aim, taking away cover, shooting twice. There's lots of options and versatility with this. This is probably one of the force multipliers that you guys have. Shock Assault, it's the same thing, but in close combat. So letting you fight twice in close combat. You've got a close combat heavy team, and one that you're probably going to have to rely on it a little bit more than I'd probably like a lot of other teams, but it's probably one of your best ways to deal out damage against teams that aren't willing to let you get those firing lanes and use your bolters to the best of their ability. I think you'll win a large amount of engagements in close combat. The only thing that's going to make it difficult is each time you do, you will lose some wounds. And even if it's only 3 or 2 damage each time, that really adds up as the game continues. So be wary of this one, but I guess against low power teams or operatives that have lots of squishy 7 wound guys, this can be truly devastating, and it can be a game changer if you can get even just 1 operative in who can fight twice and kill 2 operatives in one go. It's kind of worth a command point. Tide of Shadows is a great one, and it's another skill of the Grey Knights. I think they do a great job of mitigating some of the issues that Marines have through great ploys like this and their psychic powers, which is they basically level the playing field. This one, literally, this basically takes away the advantage of a vantage point. This stops the enemy operative being on the vantage point, being able to see your operative and basically take them out of the conceal order. So it really helps to double down the idea that they can use cover. You do need to be Pentagon away from the operative that is shooting at you, but especially early on, in most cases, that's going to be what's happening early. So this is a good one to use early to be able to get your models where they need to be at the start of the game. Tide of Celerity, I guess that's how you say it. This is an interesting one. Just in name only, what it does is pretty simple, but it gets you an extra triangle of movement on your charge range. This is really handy on a turn you know that you're going to be charging in, or you're going to be engaging a lot of your models. Turns 2, turns 3, or if you know that there's a crucial save or some big moment where an opponent may believe they're safe and you need to get that extra little bit of range, it can be a good little surprise moment. That triangle distance, especially in this game, which is a game of inches, can make a huge difference. It's not always going to come up, but can be hugely handy at the right time. Now to tactical ploys. You're going to see some familiar names here already if you are a Marines player. Only in Death is the first one, and it's obviously that one that lets you keep your operative around for a little bit longer. So if you lose an operative who is yet to be activated in this turn, use this for 1 CP, and then the next activation, you get to use these guys. Make sure you do, because if you don't use them next, it's a waste of CP and they just die anyway. This is really powerful for things like your heavy weapon, crucial objective grabbing, and suicide charges. It can be a hugely frustrating one for the enemy when used at the right time. They're already celebrating that they've just killed your guy. Well, now you might make them pay. And that can include charging in and cutting them up in close combat, shooting. They've got a whole raft of options that they can do with this. Just note, once that activation ends, they are removed from the battlefield. So it's either the end of that activation or the end of the game. They can't hang around to the end of the game to claim objectives or anything like that. And They Shall Know No Fear. This is another very familiar Space Marine one. Basically gets rid of any APL modifiers, so stun, injured, things like that. This is a crucial one. I've used this with a Space Marine before to take it away to give him the movement to capture objectives. It's a handy one to keep in your pocket when that might just matter. It definitely has its place with the Grey Knights. I understand why. It's Space Marines. Of course they need this. It's probably not one of the most exciting ones, but it can come up huge at times. Let's have a quick look at the equipment that the guys can take as well. Cybolt ammunition. This is 3 equipment points. So note straight away, it's pretty expensive. This allows you to add 1 to the damage characteristic of a Stormbolter unit in your team. This I find pretty expensive. It's obviously only that one little bit more of damage, which isn't bad, but 3 equipment points is very expensive. And it's also to only 1 unit. So I'd use with care this one. I don't really think it's worth it. Sanctic Blessing is for 2 equipment points. It lets you manifest a psychic power for free. I think this one's pretty handy, especially on something like your leader or someone you know who's going to hang around. It effectively for that 1 turn gives them 4 APL. So move, dash, shoot, cast a power. For 2 equipment points, it's not too expensive too and could come really handy in the game. Hexagrammic Wards is an interesting one, and I guess you're probably only going to find this is useful against the 2 teams that have psychic powers. Yourself, so a mirror match, or the Thousand Suns. It basically lets you potentially nullify an opponent's psychic power. I think this one's a bit too situational. It's only 2 points, so if you are having one of those matchups, look, there's definitely a place for it, especially if that team is going to be relying on it like you would be for your psychic powers. So yeah, in the right situation against the right team, there's definitely a place for it. Rest of the time, keep it in the bin. True Silver Armor is a good one, again, for your leader operative, or maybe for, you know, if you've got some points left over. 2 equipment points and gives your operative a 2+ save. Means you don't have to use armored resilience on that operative for the whole battle. So again, means you're keeping your AP for other more exciting things. Not a bad one. Purity Seal, another Space Marine classic. 3 equipment points, giving you some rerolls. This one's always going to be good. It's always hard to say no to this because it gets you out of some really, really sticky situations, and command points are hard to come by in this game. So anything that's going to help you get that reroll without spending your precious command points, and these guys have some things worth spending the command points on as well, I think this is a really good take. Lastly, it's the Psych Out grenades. I'm getting more used to using grenades now. At first I thought they were a little bit of an underwhelming thing. Now I've found a lot of good little tips and tricks and secrets on how to use them. I'm really starting to like them. And again, especially on a team that's got a low model count, anything you can do to improve the efficiency and lethality of your guys is always going to be a huge help. The main benefit of these is that they are situational and get the main benefit against psychic or demonic teams. So again, they become a little bit more situational, like the hexagrammic wards. Pick your opponent, pick your equipment. You know, that's the thing you're going to have to keep in mind with these. So there you have it. That's the Grey Knights, guys. A little bit of a quick little touch. This is a team, I think, if you're new to the game and you're wanting to get into it, the Grey Knights are a fantastic place to start. They're hugely forgiving as a team in terms of a painter, modeler, strategic way they play, tactical ploys, strategic ploys, psychic powers. They've got a little bit of everything. They're a great place to start to learn the game. But if you're good at the game, or you've played Grey Knights for a long time too, there's a whole bunch of tricks and synergies that you can really engage with. So it's not to say that they are a bottom tier side by any stretch of the imaginations. As far as the Marines teams go, I think it's these guys and the Death Watch are the 2 that are actually really worth playing in terms of the fun you can have with them, the damage they can do, all those things. I think this is a team, if you want to play Marines, definitely worth having a look at. They're strong, resilient, they can fight, they can shoot. There's really nothing they can do. The only thing they have, though, the big drawback, like a lot of Marine teams, they've only got 5 models. And I think that's really the only thing that really hurts them. Thanks so much for watching today, guys. I'll have a new tactical battle report. That's going to be my next video coming out. So that'll be next week. So stay tuned for that. If you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe, follow. The other thing I'd really appreciate too, some people have already started to do this and it is hugely, hugely appreciated. If you know anyone who is into Kill Team, is enjoying it, please feel free to share these videos or let them know to come and swing by and watch these videos, because that helps to grow the channel. The more this channel grows, the easier it is for me to keep finding the time to do this, because I love making these videos for you out there. But all those little subscribes and likes go a long way to making this a more viable path for me in the long run. So those little things like that mean a whole bunch. You guys have all been hugely supportive. I appreciate you stopping by, and we'll see you again next time. My name's Reese. We'll see you next time on 3's to 1.